We are recording. All right, folks. So today we're going to go over fragments and run-ons, and you will take the grammar and punctuation quiz on your own. We'll have practice quizzes, but I'm going to go through each of the categories of fragments and run-ons. And you have until 11:59 p.m. Sunday to take the GMP quiz. It's available here. I'll show you. Go to quizzes. Yes, right there. Go to quizzes and you'll see that it's the first one in the GMP quizzes category. Take that. You have until 11:59 p.m. this Sunday to finish it. And you have unlimited attempts at the quiz. So keep, if you don't like your results, you can keep taking it until you get the score you want. Any questions about that? So this weekend, you should watch Walkabout if you plan on writing about it. If you don't plan on writing about Walkabout, you're not required to show up for class on Tuesday. Hopefully it will be in class, in seat that is, in the classroom. And then Thursday, we'll talk about A Ghost Story and Picnic and Hanging Rock. I did find a free version of Picnic and Hanging Rock. I don't know if you saw that, but Ghost Story is only available. Where is Ghost Story available? Oh, Amazon Prime. But
I think you can get Ghost Story on Hulu Premium too. Okay.
Yeah, there are different platforms that you can find it on. So yeah, check if you have various platforms to watch movies, and then check to see if it's there for free. But it is a great movie. It's probably the most popular one of the three. Well, I've only started offering that as a choice in the last year or so, and I think it's a great film. So if you can watch it, go ahead, pay $2 or $3 for it if you have to. But the other two are good films too. They're in my top 10. All three of these films are in my top 10 of all time. But again, if you watch Walkabout and decide that you don't want to write about it, then don't worry about showing up on Tuesday, but do show up on Thursday when we talk about the other two films, okay? Any questions about that? If you don't watch the films, folks, you're going to miss out on the discussion because a lot of stuff is going to go over your head. It's better that you watch the film on your own before we discuss it, because you'll benefit greatly from our discussion, because you'll know what we're talking about. All right. All right, well, let's get started with fragments and run-ons this way. And all right. Is this a sentence? He ran. Make it bigger so you folks can see it easily. Is that a sentence?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Anybody know why it's a sentence? It's pretty basic.
It involves a subject and a verb.
Right. It has a subject, he, and a verb, ran. That's all you need for a complete sentence. Now you can have an object if you want, he ran home, but it's not necessary for a complete sentence. So as long as it has a subject and a verb, you're fine. Is that a sentence? Going home.
No, because there's no subject.
Right. It is technically what we call a fragment. Thank you, Danny. Going home is missing a subject. We don't know who's going home, so it doesn't make sense. Particularly when you isolate that sentence, when you take it out of the context of the rest of the essay. It may make sense if you have something like this. If it were a line of dialogue, it would make sense. What are you doing? Going home. In that case, it's technically a fragment, but it would be acceptable for stylistic reasons, particularly if it's dialogue. If that's what the person actually said, then it's perfectly acceptable. But you'd have to put it in quotes is the only thing. And this one too, because somebody's asking a question of that person. So in this case, yeah, it's acceptable. And you'll see it done for stylistic reasons in essays. And it's perfectly acceptable, but it's got to be obvious. It's got to be obvious that you're doing it for stylistic reasons. If it's not obvious, then it's just wrong, incorrect. So fragments and run-ons, we'll talk about run-ons in a second, are the mistakes that I see most often in students' essays, particularly in 121. So pay attention, folks, because the most often what I see, I don't see a lot of fragments, but I do see a lot of run-ons. So is that correct as a sentence? Anybody? Let's see, Danny. No, Lane. No, it's not correct. Anybody know what that's called? It's a run-on, but it's a one type of run-on. There are two types of run-ons. It's what we call a fused sentence. It says exactly what it means. You fused two sentences together, two complete thoughts, two independent clauses. He was frightened is a complete thought, and he ran home is a complete thought. Independent clauses, you cannot string them together as one sentence. Is this correct? Does that correct the sentence?
Yes.
Yes, both of you said yes. No, that is another one. That is called the comma splice. He was frightened, he ran home. You cannot splice together two independent clauses with a comma, thus comma splice. There has to be, yeah, you just can't do it. He was frightened, he ran home would be incorrect. Any way to fix this? Anybody know how to fix this sentence? What's one way?
You could add an article like and.
Go ahead, Henry.
Use fanboys, add and.
And?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one way. They're called, actually not in this case, coordinating conjunctions. You may have heard of this, seen this. Mnemonic device. Anybody seen this in high school? Fanboys. Anybody familiar with that? These are all the coordinating conjunctions in the English language for. Oops. And somebody knows. Yes. Chance knows this one. For and nor, but, or, yet, and so. So these are all the coordinating conjunctions in the English language. They don't always function as a coordinating conjunction. Only when they coordinate between two independent clauses is it a coordinating conjunction. What would be the best coordinating conjunction for this sentence here? He was frightened, he ran home. And doesn't work. I guess it could, but it doesn't make that much sense. What's the better one?
So
You can.
So, yes. Sorry. He was frightened, so he ran home. Cause and effect. In this case, it's a coordinating conjunction because this is an independent clause and this is an independent clause. So it's coordinating between the two. It always has to have a comma before it, though. Okay. But again, it doesn't always function as a coordinating conjunction. Here's an example. Toast for breakfast is not an independent clause, doesn't stand on its own. It's actually, so and here is separating items in a list, short list, eggs and toast. But this is a complete thought. He ate eggs and toast for breakfast. Okay. But if it's, all you have to do to figure out whether you need a comma before the coordinating conjunction is look at the sentence, the clause before and the clause after. If they are complete thoughts, then yes, it is functioning as a coordinating conjunction. What is another way to correct that sentence above? He was frightened, so he, no. Anybody know? It's a simple way. Come on, you gotta know. Nobody knows? I know somebody knows how to correct
Wouldn't
that.
that be a subordinate conjunction?
Subordinate clause, yes, not conjunction, but a
Okay.
subordinate clause, which is that's when you take one of those clauses, independent clauses, and subordinate it to the other, and that would make it correct. Because he was frightened, comma, he ran home. So now you've turned this into a dependent clause because that clause cannot stand on its own. Because he was frightened, he ran home. You subordinated this clause to that one. It's also called an introductory clause because it introduces us to the sentence. And it's actually longer than the actual sentence. This is the actual sentence now. He ran home. Okay. Any other ways? You're missing this very simple one. What can you replace that comma with? There are two different forms of punctuation we can replace that with. Oh, I gotta check. Period. Yes. That's a very simple way to correct this. He was frightened, he ran home. You have to capitalize he in the second clause though. He was frightened, he ran home. That's not always the best choice. Not a colon. Try again, Lane. He was frightened, he ran home. It's not always the best choice because if you have a bunch of sentences like this with subject, verb, object, the prose can seem a little staccato when you read it. He was frightened, he ran home, he turned on the lights, he called his mom. You can see that that's just kind of, it doesn't have any variety to it. So you want to be able to use subordinate clauses and coordinating conjunctions to break it up, the rhythm. What's the fourth way? You were close, Lane. Not a colon, but a
Semicolon?
yeah, semicolon. Yeah, Danny, you were right too. Semicolon. So this would have to be lowercase, and then you change the period to a semicolon. He was frightened, he ran home. The only rule with using a semicolon to connect two sentences together is that those ideas should be closely related. And these are closely related. He was frightened, he ran home. Not always the best choice though, okay? But it is possible. I suppose, Lane, you could use a colon, not really though. Yeah, it's not one of the really accepted methods. But there are situations when it's acceptable, and I'm not going to get into it. The last one is the one I don't put this on the quiz because I'm a minimalist at heart, and I don't like transitional expressions. They just, to me, they seem unnecessary when you could do it much more simply, like because he was frightened, he ran home. If you have a transitional expression, it has to have a semicolon before it and a comma after it. He was frightened, therefore he ran home. It just seems stodgy to me, and it just seems unnecessary. It's not in my mind. It's not great writing at all, and it actually sounds kind of snooty. He was frightened, therefore he ran home. Yeah, it just sounds like something a British socialite would say. Anyway, any questions about that, folks? Any of that? For the quiz itself, you're going to get a sentence like this. Like this one, or like this one, actually. And it's going to give you, you're going to read a sentence like that, and then it's going to have three choices for you to choose from. Is it a run-on? Is it a fragment, or is it correct? So read carefully. So if there's a semicolon, you would say that's correct. But if it's a comma, you would say it's a run-on sentence. Okay. So you don't have to know fuse sentence or comma splice. You just have to know whether it's a run-on. That's it for fragments and run-ons, folks. Let's take a few practice quizzes to see how well you do. let's start with fragments. Oh, that scared me. Anyway, so what they want you to do is replace this box here with one of these three or choose no errors. Many of Shakespeare's plays not studied in high school, which is the
Are not.
are not, yeah. Yeah, I don't even know why that just didn't even make sense to me, but because it's a fragment, that's why. Yeah, most of the times fragments will not make sense. They're just a little confusing. Close feedback. No, they don't show me. All right. Introversion, the tendency toward inward reflection, is arguably a good leadership quality when it is paired with self-motivation. So now this is what when students make mistakes in fragments, this is how it sounds. Now you could gloss over that very easily, particularly if you've written it. You know what you were saying, and it still makes sense in a way, but it's obviously not done for stylistic reasons, and it's just a mistake. But again, it still makes sense when it's put into the context of this sentence. When it's isolated, when you just read it by itself, when it is paired with self-motivation, that obviously doesn't make sense. So try to isolate each sentence and ask yourself, does this express a complete thought? What's the best way to correct this?
With a comma instead of the period?
No. You mean this one here?
Yeah.
No, that would be a comma splice. Actually, no, it just wouldn't make sense. Introversion is arguably a good leadership quality. It is paired with yeah, it just doesn't make sense that way.
Yeah, just have no punctuation in between.
Yeah, just let it continue as a sentence. Introversion is arguably a good leadership quality when it is paired with self-motivation. So yeah, that makes sense. This colon can only separate two independent clauses. When it is paired with self-motivation, is still not an independent clause, so you can't use a semicolon. And that would be a comma splice, and it's actually, sorry. So that would be the best answer. Any questions about that? All right, next question. Oh, we're doing well. Many college graduates face the reality of unemployment or underemployment, meaning having a degree but working in a job for which a degree isn't necessary. What's the best answer? We'll just do, sorry, first, second, third, or no errors.
The first one.
First one, yeah. So you can use a semicolon so long as the second half of the sentence, second part of the sentence is a complete thought. Underemployment means having a degree but working in a job for which a degree isn't necessary. So that expresses a complete thought. So that would be the correct answer. So well, wait a minute, let me see. That would be a comma splice, because it would be separating two independent clauses, and that's still a fragment, which means. So that's your best answer. Any questions about that? All right. In an effort to stop bullying, New Jersey instituted the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, which requires students to report bullying. First, second, third, or no errors.
Third?
Yes, the third one. You're subordinating the clause to the first sentence. This one would still be a fragment requiring students to report bullying. This would be a comma splice, but this one is correct because it subordinates that clause. Okay. Any questions about that one? We'll do one more, and then we'll move on to fused sentences. On the surface, digital photography can seem simpler than film photography because digital photography does not require access to chemicals or a darkroom. It seems obvious to me. What? Oh, okay. First, second, or third, or no errors.
I'd say first.
The first one, that would be a semicolon, and it has to separate two independent clauses. Because digital photography does not require access to chemicals or a darkroom, is not a complete thought. This one's a little deceptive, I think. Anybody have an answer for this one? Let's see. Second one, yes, Chance. Technically, I would put a comma after photography, but it's not absolutely necessary. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be there. Yeah, I would put a comma there just to avoid confusion. But I don't know why they did it this way. Anyway, any questions about that? Any of that, folks? Fragments? All right, let's go to commas, fused sentences. All right, let's just do fused sentences first. This is, again, this is when you push together two sentences as one without the comma. All right, same setup here. Some cities try to build civic spirit and pride by exhibiting urban art. Consequently, large outdoor murals are increasingly common. First, second, third, or fourth?
Third.
Yeah, third one. Now that becomes consequently is turned into an introductory clause for the second sentence, and so that would work. This one would be a fused sentence. This one would be a comma splice, and that should be a transitional expression. So semicolon should appear after art. So this is the correct answer. Okay. Any questions about that one? All right. An octopus has 3 hearts each. See, that's confusing. An octopus has 3 hearts. Each of these hearts pumps blood to different parts of the octopus's body. First, second, third, or fourth?
First?
No, that would be a comma splice. The phrase, nope. Third, nope. Third would be the second part. The second sentence would actually be a fragment because each of these hearts pumps to different parts. Yeah. So it's not the first, it's not the third, it's the second or fourth. Which one?
Could it be the fourth?
Yeah, it's the fourth one. So a semicolon can separate two independent clauses. An octopus has 3 hearts. Each of these hearts pumps blood to different parts of the octopus's body. So that would be the correct answer. This one is a transitional expression, so we need a semicolon there after hearts. So that's it. Any questions about that one? Again, for your quiz, it's going to be written out like this, and you just have to determine whether, you don't have to correct it, you just have to determine whether it's a run-on sentence, a fragment, or if it's correct. And I would, some of the questions are in like paragraph format with 2 or 3 sentences, isolate each sentence. Don't read it in the context of the sentence that came before the sentence that comes after. So just isolate it. All right, and that'll help. Okay, we'll do a few more. The growth of independent news programs allows people to hear alternative perspectives. Many groups still choose mainstream media. First, second, third, or fourth?
The first one?
Coordinating conjunction works. That would be fragment. The second sentence would be a fragment. That would be a comma splice. And that's a transitional expression, so it needs a semicolon after perspectives. So this is the best choice. Okay, any questions? Today, legislation controls organ donation policies and procedures. See, yeah, that's confusing. Today, legislation controls organ donation policies and procedures. Indeed, organ and tissue donation is becoming one of the most regulated fields within healthcare. First, second, third, or fourth?
Would it be third?
No. Somebody may have got it. Nope, not the second.
First.
First, yes, it's a transitional expression, so you need a semicolon before indeed. That would be a comma splice, and this one would be a comma splice as well. So that's the correct answer. Again, transitional expressions aren't on the quiz because I don't like them, so don't worry about that. All right, one more and then we'll go to comma splices. Some people worry about the amount of homework assigned to students. However, homework has been shown to correlate with student success in a number of studies.
First one?
Yeah, that's the only answer. It's a trend. Here it would be a transitional expression, so you need a semicolon. That's a comma splice. That's just a comma splice too, and it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, so make it its own sentence and make it, however, an introductory clause in the sentence. That works. Any questions about that, folks? All right. Let's try comma splices. All right, in 2014, the United States Supreme Court ruled bans on same-sex marriages unconstitutional. This decision forced states to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples who apply. First, second, third, or fourth?
Third?
Third, yeah. This one would be, the second sentence would be a fragment. If you begin with while this is a fused sentence, and that's a transitional expression, needs a semicolon after unconstitutional. But you can separate them with a semicolon. That works. Revising is often the most challenging part of the writing process. It is also perhaps the most rewarding. First, second, third, or fourth? Somebody has an answer. Fourth, no. That would be a fragment, although it is also perhaps the most rewarding. If you add although to it, yeah. Although is actually, because you'd have to remove it. Although is also perhaps the most rewarding.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. Use a coordinating conjunction. But it also is perhaps the most rewarding. But it is also perhaps. Any questions about that one? All right. Depression and anxiety are two of the most common health problems affecting college students. However, eating disorders are also on the rise. First, second, third, or no errors?
The second one.
Yeah, second one. Transitional expression, however, eating, that works. This one would be a comma splice. That would be a fragment to the second sentence. So yes, transitional expression. All right, a couple more. Writers can respond to opposing arguments by conceding or refuting. Conceding involves acknowledging that some of or all of the opposing arguments are valid. First, second, third, or no errors. Anyone?
The first one.
Yeah, first one. Just make them two separate sentences, and that is a complete sentence. Conceding involves acknowledging that some or all of the opposing arguments are valid. You can just change involves mean to means. Conceding means acknowledging, and it might make a little more sense. So that would be the correct answer. All right, last one. Downhill skiing attracts many people to the mountains each year. However, skiers must be aware of the potential for avalanches. First, second, third, or no errors.
No error.
No, there's a mistake. That's technically in this sentence a transitional expression, so there has to be a semicolon there, and there isn't.
Just the first one then?
Yeah. Just make it, however, into an introductory clause. Correct. All right, folks, that's it. Another bit of advice. Some sentences might be really long, but that does not mean they're incorrect. So just keep that in mind. Sentences can be very long. In fact, did we go over the forms of appeal yet? No. We will go over the forms of appeal. Oh yeah, this is 121, so it's going to be later in the semester. And we're going to read the letter from Birmingham jail by Martin Luther King. I'm going to read sections of it. And in one section, there's a sentence that goes on for more than half a page, but it's technically correct, grammatically correct. We'll find out when we get to that class period. So yeah, you are free to go. I'll stick around if you want to take the quiz. And if you have questions, I can answer them, but I'll stick around for a little while. But if everybody logs out, then I'm going to log out too. So any questions? Again, you have until Sunday night, 11:59 p.m. Sunday to finish that quiz. Okay. You're free to go or stick around. Depends.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just had a quick question about this Little Seagull handbook.
Mm-hmm.
I see that there's readings on the syllabus.
Yeah.
Is there something that we have to be doing with that, or just reading the content so we're prepared for class?
Yeah. Just read the content so you're prepared for class. I mean, technically, yeah, we're having a quiz on these. The only pages that you're going to have quizzes on are these grammar and punctuation pages. Some of the other pages are just informational, like for the interpretation essay or the argumentative essay, but there aren't many pages to read. So.
Okay, cool. I was just checking to make sure I wasn't missing something there.
No.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. What's up, Chance?
Lane you just answered my question. What he basically said with the reading. I was like, do we have to get something or?
Yeah, if you look on the syllabus, in that first column, you'll see LSH, which stands for Little Seagull Handbook, and that's the only item that has page numbers. So if you see page numbers to read, then you know it's from the Little Seagull Handbook.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good week.
You too.